Welcome to another episode of What's Your Story, presented by Vine and Branches Stories. I'm your host, Ann Swenson, and we at V&B are committed to bringing you real-life stories from regular people like you and me about how God has shown His goodness in their lives. He is so good, and our mission is for people to know God better by seeing the very real, very tangible ways He works in us, through us, and for us. Thanks for tuning in. Before I introduce my guests, I want to share with you the ways you can connect to Vine and Branches. You can find us online, of course, at vnbstories.com. But for a more interactive experience, you can download the app for free wherever you get your app, including Apple's App Store or Google Play under Vine and Branches Stories. When you subscribe to the app, be sure to have notifications turned on. Notifications are sent whenever a new story is available, and you never know when you or someone you know needs to hear a goodness of God's story. His timing is always perfect. This show can be reached wherever you stream your favorite podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, Google, and TuneIn. Follow us on social media for the latest updates on stories, news, resources, and upcoming community events. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Vine and Branches Stories, and on Twitter at VNBStories23. Again, thanks for joining us today. Let's dive in. In our previous podcast, we've talked a lot about how goodness of God stories impact an individual. Today, we are talking about how goodness of God stories also impact small groups. On this episode, I've got Stacy here with me, and we're going to talk about another aspect to sharing our goodness of God stories. Hi, Stacy.
Hi, Anne. So at the beginning of this year, when God put it on my heart to share stories, immediately I knew that small groups were part of that mission, because everyone who has participated in a small group study probably has felt that God is moving and people are growing in those small groups, and the accountability friendships that you make in those small groups are invaluable.
Yeah, absolutely. Small groups create a safe space to have accountability as well as the opportunity to grow, not only in Bible knowledge, but in the confidence to count on each other, to trust each other about details of our lives that maybe we wouldn't be prone to share with others or would be comfortable asking for prayers or advice. We have the opportunities to pray for one another as we text prayer needs to each other. We send reminders about various church activities and even give one another challenges like being in the Word as a family on a daily basis. That was one of our challenges that I know we've done in the past. Or to have the boldness to pray out loud in a group setting, which can be super terrifying for people. But practicing in a safe space with people who love you, encouraging each other with truths makes it so much easier instead of, sometimes these lies we tell ourselves like, oh, I'm not good enough or I can't do this. And, we've got people in our corner who say, yes, you can, and you're awesome and you can do this and you're in a safe space.
Right, we did see some growth as people did start to step outside of their comfort zone and pray for some things and even do some prayers out loud last time.
Mm-hmm.
And while our small groups are expanding as more and more groups are forming and groups are getting larger, there are still so many people who attend churches who are not getting connected. And there's so many new people attending churches post-COVID. There's a couple of things happening here. Some statistics say that churches are growing both online and in person, which is really amazing.
Right. Digital is here to stay, which means in a way we could be even more disconnected to each other as families have the option to stay home or travel, head to the cabin, and then they just catch the service on their phone instead. So how might we encourage those who are new to want to feel connected, to step out of their comfort zone and join a small group, or even to someday host a small group?
I think it goes back to something we probably learned when we were kids and when we were writing our first stories. That showing versus telling scenario. When we just tell people about our small groups, we're basically summarizing the things we do. We're giving a synopsis of what we are studying and possibly an overview of our schedule or our agenda. And according to the marketing blog Brevet, just 5% of people who hear brief summaries or a quick synopsis are likely to engage or remember what they hear. But on the other hand, 63% of people who hear stories about what is happening or what the groups are doing are able to recall and even engage with that information. I mean, Jesus, the ultimate marketing guru, frequently spoke in parables because real power is found in storytelling.
Yeah, he was absolutely a storyteller, and people to this day remember his principles and remember his stories because of the way he told them. Stacy, you gave the opportunity to create a video story of our small group to share with other small group leaders and for anyone who is thinking about joining a small group. It's a fun insight into the camaraderie, the studies that we did, and of course, all of the food. Over time, we have made such great friendships with people from the group that we would not have had if we all didn't say yes to the opportunity to join a small group.
Right. And if you want to see the story of our Connect group, just our summary, it is located on the Vine and Branches Stories app or website under the small group spot.
Awesome.
I asked our small group to pray about sharing some of what we were doing as a way to encourage others to join small groups and to show the benefits of being a part of a small group. At our church, we call them Connect groups. And everybody was so willing to participate as everybody could just see the value of being part of these groups and these studies. They could see kind of that fruit of being in the Word together, studying together, praying together, as well as apart, and just being in fellowship together. All of our groups are undoubtedly producing so much fruit. And I think if we start to show people that fruit by sharing our group stories, I am praying and believing that we will see more and more people eager to join and even host small groups. According to pastor and missionary Leonard Lee, the most loving thing we can do for anyone is to show them how they fit into the story that God is telling. And when they find themselves in that story, now they become friends and partners of God in such a unique way. Stories allow us to witness to others about all that Christ has done and is doing in our lives. Our stories allow us to begin by engaging emotions, and when someone's heart is softened through a story, they'll give you their attention.
Mm-hmm.
And they are ready to learn then. And then we can use the same teaching methods that Jesus used.
Mm-hmm.
So if your small group would like to share a story about some of the fruit that is the result of God moving in your group, we have some tools, and we would love to walk with you and share that story. Without getting too personal, of course, and without sharing any private group information, because we should all have that model for our groups, for some of the information that's shared, that what is shared in this group stays in this group.
Absolutely.
And I believe it is possible with God's help and through prayer to share about the fruit of our groups in a sensitive way that demonstrates honor to the group and also honor to the Lord.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there are so many things that happen within a group that can encourage other groups, but at the same time, creating that safe space that's protected so that when we're inside of our small groups and we're being vulnerable or we're sharing parts of our lives, parts of our children's lives, we are really respectful of that and respectful of those boundaries. We're, like you said, we're so good about writing up an amazing description to tell about our groups and our classes. And, we share some pretty amazing stories about what is happening at some of our leader meetings. We get together and we talk as leaders. Now we want to help share that fruit with everyone, not just the people who already know and see the value in these groups. So kind of stepping outside of that, preaching to the choir, because when we're in our small group meetings, we all know the value of a small group. We want everyone to see the value of a small group.
Exactly.
If you are in any kind of a small group or connect group that has been a blessing to the people in it, we want to hear about it and we want to share about it. Get a hold of Stacy to set up a time that you can share about your group. Invite us into one of your gatherings and we'll help you tell your story and how it shows God's glory.
We would love to hear from you. How has your small group helped you grow in your relationship with Christ and with other people in your church community? How has it helped you with talking to people outside of your church community? Because that is the goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
To be disciples of Christ.
Right. How easy is it on a Monday morning at work when they say, "Oh, what did you do this weekend?" "Oh, I got together with my small group. It's like 6 or 8 couples and we have this really amazing time together.
Right.
And we talk about this Bible study or about this parable or about, this new exercise that we're going to try to spiritually grow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such an easy way and such a natural way for us to tell people who aren't in a small group about small groups. And it's really beneficial
Mm-hmm.
and an easy way for you to disciple without you even knowing necessarily that you're discipling. It doesn't have to be a sales pitch. It can just be a very natural. I have an amazing group of people that
Exactly.
support me and I support them, and everybody should feel that.
I agree.
Thank you for joining us today for another episode of Vine and Branches What's Your Story? Stay tuned for more stories to come. We want to thank God for our Vine and Branches story supporters who, through prayer, financial support, and words of encouragement, God has used to bless this ministry and allow it to continue to move forward in this calling to share powerful stories of God moving in people's lives. Stories are powerful. As you go out into the world, I encourage you to ask someone to share a goodness of God's story, but not before you've been bold enough to share yours.